What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Cody coming back with another Off the Schneid episode, UFC preview, prediction, betting tips, breakdown, show, everything you need to know, get you prepared for June 6th, this Saturday, UFC 250, Nunes versus Spencer. If you're here for the first time, do me a massive favor, hit that like button. It helps the channel exponentially. Give me the 3-piece with the soda. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when I'm putting out some content. Super excited for this card. It is stacked, in my opinion, top to bottom. Really, we just had a fight fall through, Ian Heinisch and Gerald Meerschaert. I think an injury to Heinisch, maybe it was a problem with the weight cut. I'm not really sure, but that fight just fell through. They're still looking for a replacement for Meerschaert, so I didn't have to make a breakdown and everything, so that kind of makes it easier, I guess. I'll dip into it just super quick for everybody. I want to take a look at my bet that I cashed this previous week at UFC on ESPN 9, Woodley versus Byrd, so I'll show you that real quick, and then we'll get into the tips. All right, so here's a quick look at the bet I had over the weekend on Saturday. It was a bit of a long shot. I clearly thought all of these had a shot to happen. That's why I kind of put it together, obviously. And you can see the cash out amount there, $10,299.85 on a $100 bet. So pretty good return, obviously. I cashed this out. Obviously, you're going to look at it and say, Spike Carlyle didn't win. He didn't win. But I cashed it out in that first round when he didn't get the early finish. That's kind of how I thought the fight would go. If Spike Carlyle is going to get a finish and going to win the fight, it's going to be early. First, maybe second round. And then as soon as he kind of didn't get that finish and he was scrambling around and Billy Q kind of got the better of him in the scrambles and then ended up on top a little bit, I took the payout. I got offered about 12 something. Earlier on, but when you're cashing out on Bet365 like that, it's a split second. You probably have about 5 seconds to decide if you're going to cash it out or not. And it was going well, so I'm sitting there waiting for the finish to see if he's going to get him finished. Didn't do it. They came back with another offer, which was this, and I took it, as quick as I could. Kind of, I didn't want it to go down again. And it might have gone up. I mean, it might have gone up between rounds because Carlyle definitely won that first round, but I wasn't about to take that risk. I'm not about to, bet $10,000 essentially. So, and then Augusto Sakai got the decision win. So essentially, I guess I was one off of winning this kind of dart throw. But like I said, I liked everything that, I liked all the possibilities of these happening. When I posted this, some guy was saying that I edit my bets or edit my posts or something like that, and it really got under my skin because I like to maintain a very solid reputation online and on Twitter. I am who I am in real life on Twitter as well. I'm not, there's a lot of fake accounts, there's a lot of fake stuff, there's a lot of editing, a lot of nonsense that happens. I'm not one of those guys. So like I said, I'm who I am in person and on Twitter. I keep that kind of same energy no matter, I am who I am. I'm my own brand. But either way, this was a bet that I had put together. It was definitely a nice win. If you're looking for tips, I'm not saying tail my bets. This is a little crazy. Stuff like this doesn't happen all the time, quite clearly. So temper expectations, but if you want some betting tips from me, you can go ahead and follow at Cody Woodman. I'll put a link in the description to my Twitter account where I do post all of my bet slips. I keep myself accountable, and I welcome my followers to keep me accountable as well. So follow and tail at your own risk. But if you're looking for tips, and I always accentuate it's tips, do your own research, watch these videos, and confirm what you already think. And use it as tips and advice. Don't just take it as gospel and then get upset if it doesn't happen. That hasn't happened yet. No one's done that to me, but you never know. And I don't put together parlays for people. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions for you or give advice. But again, it's tips, it's advice. It's not set in stone, that's for sure. So this was a nice little win we had on Saturday. I took the co-main and main event off after this one because I just bank a win, a nice, very nice win. So there you go. That was this Saturday. So let's get into this Saturday UFC 250 betting tips, predictions, everything you need to know. Get you ready. All right, first fight of the night. We're kicking it off in a catchweight bout. This will be at 150 pounds. Usually Herbert Burns is at 145, Evan Dunham at 155. So here we go. We'll just meet in the middle, and Bob's your uncle. Let's throw some punches here. Let's start it out with Evan Dunham. He at one point, he was one of the better guys at this weight class at 155. Only issue with that is that was about 10 years ago. So he went on a bit of a run in 15 to 16, but other than that, really, he had that early push in 2010, and that was kind of the end of it for him as a contender, to be honest with you. I like Evan Dunham as a fighter, but if I'm being honest, I feel like the sport might have passed him by a little bit. He's 38 years old, hasn't fought in almost 2 years, coming off back-to-back TKO, KO losses. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I don't expect Evan Dunham to win this fight. I can't even find a parlay. Usually I like to try to play both sides for you guys, but I can't find much for Evan Dunham in the way of a victory. So trains at Extreme Couture. He's seen everything, but again, I just don't see it. I don't see him beating Herbert Burns anywhere and in any way. So move on to Herbert Burns. Obviously, his brother is having an extreme amount of success right now at 170 pounds. Might be fighting for the title next. He's obviously fantastic on the ground. And his last time out, he KO'd Nate Landwehr, who we just saw the other weekend, with a knee, gorgeous knee. And this guy's a finisher, man. His 10 wins, 8 have come by stoppage, 7 by submission, 1 by KO. And then his 2 losses were to one guy is still undefeated, 14-0, and the other loss was to a guy who's undefeated at the time. Their combined record is 24-2. So those aren't tough losses, man. Those are 2 tough Russians. It's hard to say both their names, but they're tough fights and tough losses, both in one championship, one FC. So on a 4-fight win streak, all stoppages, like I said, it's going to be tough to beat Herbert Burns. So I'm most certainly picking Herbert Burns. Again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. So picking Herbert Burns, 1.45 in a parlay, you betcha. I'll be taking that probably a fair bit. You could definitely take 2.05, 2 to 1 on your money for a finish. Absolutely. This might even be one where you take a round betting. You could take the first round, maybe second. I don't see this going to a decision in any way, so I'm not taking that 4.33, and I'm not looking at Evan Dunham for any value at all. There's no way I'm betting on Evan Dunham in any way. I'm sorry. But 4.33, I'm not taking that. That's honestly a little too risky for me. I don't think Evan Dunham can survive that long. I just don't. So 2.05 for a KO or stoppage, I should say, and then 1.45 absolutely. Round betting, you might as well just avoid it and take the money line. It's basically right there, or the stoppage. Yeah, that's pretty much the only bets. Either a stoppage 2.05 and 1.45. Throw them in parlays, especially the money line on Burns. Throw that in a parlay with a bunch of runners. I think I've already done it. Check my bet slips, like I always say. But I definitely will be sprinkling that, and that's 100% who I'm picking. So we should be able to start off the night with a fairly easy win, in my opinion. So let's move on to the second fight. All right, moving on to the second fight. We got a light heavyweight 205-pound scrap with Alonzo Menifield and Devin Clark, the Brown Bear. This is kind of an interesting point, and people that are kind of hating on this card a little bit, if you are hating on this card a little bit, I think this just shows how deep this card actually is. Alonzo Menifield is kind of a star in the making. I'm not going to, maybe not star, but he's definitely someone that the UFC is going to look to build around. He's got a lot of potential, and he's finished all of his fights, maybe not one, but I'll get into him. But that just shows kind of how stacked this card is, this and the next fight as well. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. So we'll start with the Brown Bear, Devin Clark. He orthodox fighter. He's always looking to grapple. He just runs in there and kind of underhooks and pushes against the cage. He's looking to grapple and kind of wear down on his opponent. You know, that's kind of his strategy. He's not exactly what I would call a volume striker at all. He's not an extremely good grappler or wrestler either. And I definitely wouldn't call him a knockout artist, a KO artist either. 7 of his 11 wins have come via decision, 3 KOs. But I don't think any of those were in the UFC. No, they weren't. So they were all before he got to the UFC. Although he did rock Alex Nicholson, Jan Blachowicz, and Alexander Rakic. He did rock all of them. Didn't put any of them away. And he actually ended up losing all those fights by stoppage. So it's interesting. And then in the Rakic fight, it was kind of crazy. He landed like 10 illegal knees to Rakic's kind of head and shoulder area. He had both his hands down, and he's just getting cracked in the head. So it's kind of ridiculous and some of the worst reffing I've ever seen. But either way, that's kind of what he's doing, is he's getting in there, grabbing underhooks. I didn't even watch the Daquan Townsend fight again. I watched it live, and I just recall it being super boring and really just Devin Clark trying to just grind out a win type of thing. Did the same thing with Darko Stosic as far as I remember. Again, I didn't watch that one again either because I recall it being quite boring. Mike Rodriguez. So you see what I'm getting at here. All of his wins are just boring, grindy, grapply kind of fights that, they're just, and maybe that's why this fight's so low, because there's not a lot of heat behind Devin Clark, to be honest with you. Former middleweight, he has fought at light heavyweight for quite a while, and all of his losses are via stoppage. He's getting stopped a fair bit, 2 submissions and 2 KOs, and his kind of trajectory has been win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. What's next? Yeah. So that's kind of Devin Clark. Let's move over to Alonzo Menifield. I really like Alonzo Menifield. Big former football player. Shouts to the CFL, former CFL and Arena League linebacker, which is pretty sweet. He trains with Saif Saud and Fortis MMA, which is not so quietly becoming one of the better camps to be in the fight game right now. They're doing a lot of good things. So he trains with a great gym. In the Daniel Jolly fight, in his original appearance on Dana White Contender Series, it was stopped by the ref. Doctor came in. He said, "I can't see." Ref has to stop it basically at that point. There was a lot of talk and thoughts that it was kind of a glancing eye poke or something like that. Turns out it was a broken orbital bone off of kind of a glancing shot from Menifield. So that just shows and tells you what kind of power this guy has. So he ended up getting the win there, but it wasn't exactly how he wanted to win, and he didn't end up getting a contract because of it. Then he goes back down to the LFA, finishes 2 guys in the first and second round pretty quickly, and then gets another shot in the Dana White Contender Series. 8 seconds, gets the win. It was a bit of an early stoppage in my opinion. I didn't really love the stoppage. The guy looked like he was moving and still in the fight. It was Deshaun Boatwright. I looked like an early stoppage to me, but I think it was going to happen at some point anyways. It was just going to get there. This guy's a beast. I really like this guy a lot. I really like Alonzo Menifield. I really like his potential. And then in his first official fight in the UFC against Vinicius Marreta, it was a beating. That guy, honestly, Vinicius, he just doesn't belong in the UFC, to be honest with you. He takes a lot of punches, and he's been knocked out, I think, in his 2 fights in the UFC, and that's probably the last we'll see of him. I didn't, even in his Contender Series, he was taking some bombs, and then he ended up tapping the guy out. But either way, if my memory serves me correctly on this. And then he comes out in his next time out, fights Paul Craig, and viciously knocks him out as well. So he's pretty, I know Devin Clark's going to come and try to grapple him and wrestle him, but he's pretty hard to take down. He's very, very strong, and hard to take down. He showed that in the Paul Craig fight, has really good balance. A lot of these multi-sport athletes kind of have those traits just kind of ingrained in them, which I really like to see. And this, he's had about a year off, since the Paul Craig fight, couple injuries in there. But for me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's fairly inexperienced and he's just kind of getting going in his career. So for me, that might be a good thing, that he can kind of sit back, take a step back, and reevaluate fighting and just watch more fighting and get more training. So I'm not necessarily like upset about that for him. And I think there's a good future for Alonzo Menifield. I'm really excited to see more of him. So who wins this fight? Alonzo Menifield is going to win this fight. I'm quite confident in that as well. I think it's a good opportunity to start 2-0 on this card with Burns and then Menifield. I think he's going to catch him. I think it's just a matter of time. I know Clark's going to come rushing in and try to grapple with him. Either he catches him right then and there, and it's going to be a quick outing, or he gets up against the fence, shrugs him off eventually, and lands a big power punch. That's just what I see happening. I don't see Devin Clark being able to hang in there that long. I honestly just kind of think it's only a matter of time. So I'm absolutely picking Alonzo Menifield. And then as far as the betting is concerned, 1.44 on the money line. Yep, easy money on a parlay, in my opinion. The stoppage 1.72. I like that. I kind of wish it was a little higher, obviously, but like even 2-1, like the Burns. But that's all right. I mean, that's how he wins this fight, and I'm relatively confident. I'm quite confident that that's how he gets it done. So I'd probably sprinkle that. Decision, I'm not going after it. The only parlay the only hedging option I can give you for Devin Clark is, I guess, in a KO or a decision, something like that. I'm not touching Devin Clark. I'm just not. I really don't like how he fights. I really don't. I really just don't like how he fights, and I'm not a fan of Devin Clark, and I'm a massive fan of Alonzo Menifield. So I'm taking him to not go to decision 1.33. Yeah, if you don't want to, take the risk on Menifield, then take that, because big boys like this, I mean, yeah, Devin Clark could try to grind out a decision, but either way, under 1.8, or sorry, under 1.5 for 1.8, I don't mind that at all. That's definitely decent value. Might be better than the money line. But I feel pretty confident betting on Alonzo Menifield either way. That's who I'm betting on. That's who I'm picking. Check my bet slips if you need some advice, or you wanna sprinkle a little something different. Check my bet slips, and we'll take it from there. So let's take a look at the next fight. All right, next up, like I said in the previous fight, this is kind of not getting a ton of respect. This is a really good fight in my opinion, but again, it's kind of indicative of how stacked this card is, in my opinion. I think it's a very stacked card, and I think this is a really good fight. Obviously, Formiga has kind of been, I don't want to say he's been screwed, but I'm almost willing to go there. Like, the fact that he hasn't gotten a title shot is kind of, it really kind of sucks. He hasn't fought Mighty Mouse, and I would have liked to have seen that fight at some point. He was like number 1, 2, or 3. Even now he's 4 off of 2 straight losses. So I would have liked to see him get a shot. He did lose to Henry Cejudo and Joseph Benavidez twice. But yeah, it kind of sucks. But hopefully with, I hope that we can see a lot more kind of title fights and stuff like that at the 125 division, and it gets a little more investment, because there's a lot of good fighters in this division, and there's a lot of good fights, solid fights. Brandon Royval's now in the division, Brandon Moreno, Alex Perez, Jussier Formiga, Figueiredo and Benavidez are fighting for the title again. So yeah, let's get into this fight though. We've got Jussier Formiga, who's just solid all around. He's kind of a grappler. He's got really quick takedowns, solid grappling, excellent transitions. He doesn't really throw a ton on the feet. He's kind of looking to counter punch, but he doesn't throw a ton. He's not like really high volume on the feet. He's got really good jiu-jitsu and kind of a neutralizing ground game. When he's on his back, he's just looking to kind of neutralize. He's position over finish type of a guy. In his last, I guess we'll go his last 3 fights, like he's ranked 4th. He's coming off of 2 losses and he's ranked 4th. But in those last 3 fights, a loss to Brandon Moreno, who's probably next in line for a title shot once it gets sorted out between the previous fight he had with Joseph Benavidez, who he lost to, And the fight before that, he's the only guy to beat Deiveson Figueiredo. So he beat Figueiredo. He lost to Benavidez. Those two are fighting for the title right now. And then he loses to Brandon Moreno, who's probably next in line for the title shot. So his last 3 fights are against the top 3 guys in this division. So very, very experienced, very good fighter. There's a lot to like about Jussier Formiga. American top team trained as well. So a great camp. Let's move to Alex Perez, who I really, 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 really like. I've liked him since he came into the UFC. He's definitely more of a finisher, although they both have quite a few decision wins. Obviously, in this weight class, there's always going to be lots of decisions. The smaller guys and smaller girls don't have a ton of power to be able to just go out there and knock each other out. Deiveson Figueiredo is a bit of an anomaly in this weight class. Like, he goes out there and puts guys away, and it just doesn't happen that much. But I mean, with Perez, it's about 50-50 in his finishes and decisions, which is pretty good. And Formiga, I think he's got 13 by decision, 10 by submission, 0 KOs, which is definitely something to think about, and I'll kind of get into that. So Alex Perez, he's got great, really, really great wrestling, really good wrestling. He might be the best wrestler in this division. He's definitely up there. Good heavy top game. Even he's had a couple fights at 135. And to be able to have that good heavy pressure at that weight class, which is higher than this, obviously, that's pretty impressive to me. Good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, really good boxing, really crisp boxing, which I like. Good boxing defense as well. Keeps that hand up high. And there was a funny thing in his only loss in UFC to Joseph Benavidez. If you haven't seen it, some of the worst reffing I've ever seen in my entire life. Yves Levine literally called a stop to the fight, and then Benavidez stopped punching him in the head, and then he's like, "Keep fighting, no, keep fighting." It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It still ended up the way it should. Benavidez ended up getting the TKO via punches, which was the result, and it was just awful. It was an absolute travesty, and I'm glad we don't see much Yves Levine anymore, because geez, that was atrocious. But again, so we'll go back to the 0 KOs for Formiga and kind of the way that he fights on the feet. Not a ton of volume, looking to counter, but not really any power, not a ton of power at all. So if I'm Alex Perez, I love that. It allows me to be the aggressor and not really be too concerned with anything coming back at me. Like, he has that good boxing base and great wrestling and great jiu-jitsu. He's just an all-around really good fighter. But with Formiga's tendencies, for me, it allows Perez to be the aggressor and not be super concerned about, taking a right hand over the top from a guy like Joseph Benavidez or Deiveson Figueiredo or something like that. He can fight this fight a lot different than he would against those guys. So I'm going to be picking Alex Perez to win this fight. And then that skyrockets him up this division and puts him in a spot where we might see a guy like Perez and Moreno, while we're waiting on Benavidez and Figueiredo to get done. You might see Alex Perez and Moreno for a number 1 contender and a title shot after that. So I'm picking Alex Perez. As far as the betting's concerned, 1.72. Like, I'm probably not going to bet on this a ton. I don't really like to bet on these light weight classes. There's just the margins are super slim. The margins are very, very slim, and I don't like to take that kind of risk. I think that's very, really risky. Even though I feel very confident in Alex Perez winning, I still just that there's a ton of risk, and there always is at these weight classes. A lot like strawweight division for the women's side. The margins are just very slim, and I don't like to take that kind of risk, even though I take a lot of risk. But either way, 1.72 for Alex Perez. I do like that, and I probably will put that somewhere. To finish, I probably don't look for him to finish, or Formiga. I don't like either of them to finish. Again, at this weight class, it doesn't happen a ton, even though they do have double-digit finishes each, and a lot of wins. But it's, again, a lot of risk, and I'm probably not going after that. And the decision money, I mean, yeah, sure. I'd probably just stick with the money line just in case with Perez. If you're going after Formiga, yeah, you could definitely look at 2.87 for for a decision win for him? Or the money, like what's the difference with the money line though? Really, it's not extreme. It's not enough. If I'm going for Perez, which I am, I might take the decision there. But I think there's a reasonable possibility he finishes this fight. So I probably just take the money line with these guys. Probably just go after the money line. Fight to go the distance. 1.5 for a yes, 2.5 for no. At your own risk. I'm probably not touching that. A lot of risk there for me. And then the over-under rounds. I think I already sprinkled over 1.5 in just kind of a dart throw parlay. But sometimes those dart throw parlays work out pretty well, as you saw in the opener. So I put the over 1.5 or 1.25 just to juice that parlay up a little bit. And that's like kind of all I'm really looking at if I have to bet on it. Again, I'm not sprinkling a ton. I'm really not, because the variance is just, and the margins are, again, even the one that I did sprinkle, I didn't take a winner. I just took over 1.5 rounds because at this weight class, pretty good possibility, extremely good possibility. And these guys can kind of neutralize each other a little bit, especially if it hits the mat. If it hits the mat, this could be very neutral kind of a fight, just chess, you know? So we'll see, but I'm definitely picking Alex Perez in this one, so let's move on. Moving on to the middleweight division, we got Charles Kid Dynamite Byrd versus Magny Coconut Bombs Pitolo. This should be fun. This should be a fun fight. I absolutely think that we get a finish here. Well, maybe not absolutely, but I think we get a finish here. And this should be a fun one. Pitolo trains with Yancy Medeiros and the guys in West Wahoo MMA. Charles Byrd is the quote-unquote team captain for Fortis MMA. I just got done talking about them. They're a fantastic gym, and they're making some serious moves, and he's supposedly the captain. I'm not sure what that means, but either way, he's very experienced. Like, looking at his record, you might not think he's super experienced, but he is. Let's start it out with Magny Pitolo. He's a bit undersized. He's a welterweight. He's a 170. Obviously, he's taken this fight. A lot of guys are moving up during this pandemic. A lot of guys are just moving up. Both guys, one guy, whatever, that are moving up a weight class, obviously for obvious reasons. But again, so yeah, he's a little undersized. He's got a good chin. He has been knocked out a few times, and he's got a good chin, and he survived an absolute firefight with Callan Potter in his UFC debut after his contender series fight, where he got clipped a couple times as well. He took a loss in that fight and got rocked a bunch of times. He's just super sloppy with his boxing, super hittable. And I mean, when was that? That was just in October. I'm not sure if he's cleaned that up enough since then. But man, you got to clean up that boxing a little bit and clean up that boxing defense, because he ate some absolute bombs from Callan Potter. Didn't go down, didn't get knocked out, but you can't take those kinds of shots, especially when moving up a weight class. Charles Byrd is going to hit harder than Callan Potter. I guarantee you that. So you got to clean up that boxing a little bit. Let's move to Charles Byrd. Again, Fortis MMA, very, very well coached. He's a bit of a finisher. 8 of his 10 wins have come via finish. 5 by submission, 3 by KO. In his last time out, his last fight against Edmund Shabazian. Edmund Shabazian's just a beast, and he's a star in the making. Edmund Shabazian's going places. He's a very good fighter already, super young, talented, and just finished him with some vicious kind of elbows. That was a very good win for Edmund Shabazian, and a tough kind of a tough night out for Charles Byrd. Fight before that, Darren Stewart, the dentist, he was actually doing really well in that fight. He most certainly won the first round and was winning the fight, and kind of looked like he just got a little too comfortable, a little complacent. Maybe just didn't think that, maybe he felt the power of Stewart in the first round and felt like he wasn't going to be able to get him out of there. And to me, it just looked like he got a little comfortable and complacent, but he was winning that fight. And you don't want to get like that with a guy like Darren Stewart. He's a very, very, very hard puncher and elbows. And it was definitely a good win for Stewart and a tough loss for Charles Byrd. And he most likely probably learned a bunch from that fight. He's got a decent jab, likes to clinch and grapple quite a bit. And I would like to see him go back to that. He kind of got away from it in the Darren Stewart fight. And then realistically, he didn't really have a shot against Shabazian. That fight only lasted 38 seconds. It was really, really quick. But I'd like to see him get back to that. He did a great job of it against John Phillips in his UFC debut. Took him down, choked him out first round. So he definitely has that ability. And I think he could get that done against Magny Pitolo. I think he can finish him on the feet or on the mat. So I would like to see him grapple. I'd like to see him go in and take him down and just pound him out and maybe tap him out, something like that. I know that he's better on the ground. So that's what I would like to see. Who am I picking? I'm picking Charles Byrd. For sure picking Charles Byrd. I just think that he's a lot cleaner everywhere as a fighter and more polished and more experienced. And I think he can definitely get this win against Magny Pitolo. How does he win? I think, again, that's what I want him to do. Take him down and wrestle him. And then submit him or grind out a TKO. So I don't mind that 2.4 on your money. 1.57, I was hoping for more. When I watch tape and everything and make my kind of prediction, I think of what I think the odds will be. And I kind of had it like 1.72 to 2.1, something like that. I thought I would get better money on Charles Byrd. I did. Coming off 2 losses, that kind of thing. 2 stoppages, 2 TKO losses. I thought I'd get better money. So I'm not in love with that number, but I'll take it. I'll throw it in a parlay. And again, I think I have put it in a parlay already. Check my bet slips. But that's who I like to win. The distance, I think that's risky to take the 3.75. I think that's risky. Or even 2.37 for it to go the distance. Even the round betting, I'm a little nervous about that. I probably just take 1.57 for sure. Taking that for the money line win for Byrd. Definitely going to sprinkle that. And then I might take the KO, TKO sub. I mean, I'll probably take that. I'll probably take one, either of those or both of those. If you're looking for something on Magny Pitolo, I mean, it would be a finish or the money line. Like the money line is just the safer way to go. So I mean, if you really think Magny Pitolo wins this fight, take the money line. I don't particularly see it, and I won't be betting on it. I don't even think I'll hedge on this one. I probably won't put Byrd in every parlay I make, obviously. I'm not that screaming comfortable with it, not as much as I have been in the previous couple fights. But yeah, that's definitely who I'm picking. Charles Byrd, kind of lock it in, and then yeah, let's move on. Next up, we got a featherweight. This is going to be a featherweight bout at 145. These guys are both usually bantamweights. This is the second time I'll be talking about Brian Kelleher. He's the first guy that I've done has been on multiple episodes. Brian Boom Kelleher versus Cody the Spartan Stamann. So my heart goes out to Cody Stamann, and this is going to be an extremely tough fight for him. He had his little brother pass away about 2 weeks ago now, something like that. So it's going to be tough, and he's coming in with a heavy heart, and I hope everything's going okay for him and his family and everything like that. It's always tough to see something like that happen, and hopefully he can kind of shut that out. And he says that his brother would have wanted him to compete, and he used to love watching him compete. So I obviously he made the decision for himself, and I obviously appreciate that, and hope nothing but the best for him. So we'll start with Brian Kelleher. Actually, we'll start with Cody Stamann. Let's start with Cody Stamann here. He's a very good wrestler. He's got improved striking. I wrote improved striking, but he's a Golden Gloves boxer. So he does have it, and he's got very good boxing defense. That's for sure. Very good boxing defense. But I'd like to see more volume from him on the feet. I'd really like to see him throw more, be more of a boxer. You know, if he has those hands, I'd like to see it more. Because I from what I've seen, he's kind of gotten outstruck a little bit. It was pretty close against Brian Caraway. And Aljamain Sterling looked good. He took him down and ended up knee barring, which was great. And then Yudong Song, it wasn't, he wasn't running away with that. But those guys are good fighters, and Yudong Song is the better stand-up fighter, in my opinion. But he's got, and that's the other thing, he's got extremely good takedown defense. Brian Caraway could not get him down. Super strong guy. Super jacked. If he's single, probably does really well with the ladies. He's got an unemptiable, a bottomless gas tank. So you're not going to make him tired. He likes to counterpunch, and that's kind of the problem with his striking. I wish he would be first more, throw more, jab more, get in there, you know. Again, he's an excellent grappler and wrestler, and he's got really good head position when he's grappling. He's always aware of where his head's at. And like I said, position over finish. So he's always just trying to improve his position and score on the ground. He's not throwing extreme volume down there. He's really not. He's really not throwing extreme volume anywhere. And that's my biggest kind of bugaboo with Cody Stamann is I would like to see him throw more volume everywhere, on the ground, on the feet, everywhere. Because he's good. He's a solid all-around fighter everywhere. So I'd like to see a little more from him. 18-2, that's a great record. But 10 of them are by submission. Or sorry, decision. 10 of them by decision. He's taken a lot of guys to decision, especially, lately. All of his wins in the UFC have come by decision. So he's not out there finishing guys, but he's got very good wins. Alejandro Perez, Brian Caraway, Tom Daquino, Terrion Ware. Like he's got really good wins. It's tough to bet on him because every time it goes to a decision, you're pretty puckered. Like it's nerve-wracking. It's tough to kind of bet on Cody Stamann and feel super duper confident about it. But let's move on to Brian Kelleher, who just fought a couple weeks ago at 145. So he's obviously feeling pretty comfortable. Had an upset win, in my opinion, and as far as the betting was concerned, over Hunter Azure, which was fantastic. I didn't expect it to go that way. I mean, I did say that it was very possible he could do it. His name's Boom for a reason. He can put your lights out. Anyone's lights out, really. But the interesting thing about Kelleher now is that he didn't really stop training. He couldn't have, This is, I don't know, what are we, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks since that event happened? So he couldn't have really stopped training and stopped kind of keeping on his diet and everything. So he's been crisp. He's been crisp. He's been ready to go, kind of a thing. I think when was the Sandhagen fight? Back in December, so not crazy long, 6 months for Cody Stamann, but just with the way things are going in the world right now, it's a lot tougher to be as crisp and active. And like I said, Kelleher's been doing it, and he's been in there. He was just in there May 13th, so not even a month ago. So he couldn't have stopped training. He had to have kept on keeping on, type of thing. So this is a tough fight, man. This is a really, really tough fight. I probably will avoid this a bunch. I already sprinkled a Kelleher win. I did, because I think that he can outbox him. I just think that he can out-volume him, kind of like he did back in the day against Henan Barao, where he just overwhelmed him on the feet and just kept pushing. He's a vet, man, and he hasn't lost to any cans. And not that Cody Stamann is a can or has lost to cans or has fought a bunch of cans, but his losses to Montel Jackson, John Lineker, and Chito Vera, not a ton wrong with those losses, in my opinion. Those are his losses in the UFC, and he's got some very good wins. And submitted Yuri Alcantara, which is tough, man. Like, that guy's game, and he submitted him with a guillotine. So I did sprinkle a little bit on Brian Kelleher at 3.25. Who am I picking to win this fight? I'm just for straight picking and predictions, I'm gonna pick Cody Stamann because he's got more avenues. There's more routes to victory for him, for me. But that's a juicy line for Brian Kelleher, 3.25 just on the money line. I definitely don't mind that. I don't think he's going to go out there and knock Cody Stamann's block off. He moves too well. He's got too good a boxing defense, good head movement, everything, and good grappling. So I don't particularly think he knocks him out. But I said that about Hunter Azure too. But maybe more so in this fight. I don't know. But I don't mind if you sprinkle 3.25 on Brian Kelleher if you like him, and I already have, like I said. Over 1.5 rounds, 1.22. If you got 8 runners or something crazy in a crazy parlay, chuck it in there. To go the distance, 1.4. I probably avoid that. That's not enough juice for me. Cody Stamann, and there you go. Like, clearly the odds makers think Cody Stamann's going to win this in a decision, which is pretty fair. All of his UFC wins have come in a decision, and he's beaten guys that are, you know, probably better than Brian Kelleher, right? So, I mean, but like I said, you're not, most Cody Stamann fights, you're not sitting there at the end of the fight being like, yes, cash my bet slip, no problem. You know, and 1.36 is not, you know, making me lick my lips over here. Neither is 1.72 for a decision. And I don't think he goes out there and finishes Kelleher. Is it possible? Of course. Does he? I'd give Kelleher more of a chance. You know, they're even, not even money, but 5-5, 5-1 and 5-1 on a finish. So not extremely likely. You could go with Kelleher for a decision, 6.5, to just outpoint him and outbox him. Absolutely. I think I will touch that somewhere. You know, it's kind of a dog or pass in this fight. So it's kind of a dog or pass if you're betting. So yeah, there you go. Check my bet slips and take it for what it is. This is a tougher fight than the odds makers are making it seem, in my opinion. It should be a little closer, in my opinion, which makes me, you know, want to bet on Kelleher. So that's probably what I'll do, or pass. That's just probably what it is. Again, check my bet slips. As far as my prediction on who wins or loses, I'm going to take Cody Stamann because honestly, it's easy for me to do that. But that's who I'm taking to win the fight. But if I'm betting money, which some people covet as more an important decision, of course, you know, I'm probably taking the dog or pass. So there you go. Take it for what it is. Let's move on to the next fight. So right before I started filming, I checked Twitter one more time, and shouts to Marcel Dorf over in the Netherlands there. He broke the news that this fight is not happening anymore. Ian Heinisch had to pull out, whether that was an injury or due to weight cut, whatever it was. They're still looking for a quick replacement opponent for Gerald Meerschaert. So we'll see what happens. For what it's worth, I had already put Ian Heinisch in a parlay, and I would have liked Ian Heinisch potentially for a knockout. And now I'm kind of just choked that I did all that tape and put in a bunch of work for a fight that's not happening. And, you know, 5 minutes before I started recording, I found out it wasn't going on. So this fight isn't happening anymore. Hopefully they get a replacement for Gerald Meerschaert. I probably won't sprinkle much on any. I'll probably avoid it. We'll see. You can check my Twitter, check my bet slips to see if I sprinkle anything. But again, this fight is not happening. Next up, we've got a featherweight bout between Bruce Leroy, Alex Cacares, and Chase the Dream Hooper. This should be super fun. Chase Hooper's a character. I like this kid, but and so is Cacares. I like Cacares as well. He's no longer a kid, but yeah, this should be a fun one. So let's get into it. We'll start with Alex Cacares, tall southpaw karate style. This will be his 22nd fight in the UFC, which is very impressive. And he had 3 on the Ultimate Fighter, so he's been around forever. He's seen a ton of stuff. He's been in there with the best. And, you know, sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses. It's kind of how it goes with Cacares. He's kind of like the gatekeeper for the pre-top 15 kind of thing. Like, he'll kind of always have a job, really, as long as he's putting on exciting fights. So, yeah, karate style, bouncing on his toes. He's kind of a lesser skilled Stephen Thompson, more or less. He's got good footwork. He's in and out, really quick in and out, good lateral movement, endless gas tank. Really diverse striker. He works his angles really well on the feet. Again, really diverse, but he kind of spars. He's kind of just in there sparring. And if you go in there and spar with him, it's a coin flip. You might win, you might lose. He's going to hit you with some good stuff, and you're going to hit him, and it's going to go back and forth. Yair Rodriguez, that was a sparring match. That was a 5-round sparring match between those two guys, and I think Yair won clearly. One judge had Cacares winning. I don't. I had Yair winning that unanimous, but realistically, Yair should have probably finished him. Like, Yair is quite a bit ahead of Alex Cacares, in my opinion, by a fairly large margin, even at that time 4 years ago. But Yair did get the win. It was a main event, so he's been in the main event. Like, he's been around forever, this guy. Again, a great gas tank, trains at the MMA lab, great gym. And yeah, I mean, you see his record there. So, you know, sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, kind of a thing. But he's always in pretty exciting fights. And last time out, he got the unanimous decision win against Steven Peterson, who just tried to spar with him, and that's what'll happen. Kron Gracie, of course, took him down, submitted him in the first round. No problem. Jason Knight got him to the ground, choked him out in the second round. Yair Rodriguez sparred with him and scraped out a split decision win. So it's pretty clear the route to victory for him. He's not a power puncher at all. He hasn't had a knockout win or even a TKO win since 2010, like before he got in the UFC. He's been in the UFC forever, and he hasn't had a TKO or KO win the whole time he's been in the UFC. The one against Roland Dye was an eye injury. I don't really know what was going on there. I think sometimes this happens there's a language barrier where they don't understand that what the ref's asking, or sorry, the doctor's kind of asking and what is being said maybe. I don't know. And they say the wrong thing and then the fight's over because they said the wrong thing. It kind of happened in a couple, it doesn't matter. It happens. You see it sometimes where you're like, I don't know if he understands what's being said to him. So he was very much in the fight, Roland Dye, very much in the fight. But either way. So he's not a power puncher. I don't expect him to just go out there and knock out Chase Hooper. That's for sure. Considering Chase Hooper in his Tuesday night contender series, he fought Kanan Kawahi and got rocked a bunch. Even Daniel Tamer had him rocked and choked out almost. So this kid just doesn't quit, and he can take a punch. He can definitely take a punch. He's fantastic on the ground, little octopus down there. Needs to, hit up his old man Ben Askren and work on his wrestling to get it down there. He's got to be able to. This is, again, I've said it on previous episodes, and I'll continue to say it. These BJJ guys that can't get it to the ground. What good is your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt if you're not on the floor? So you got to work on that wrestling and get it down, and hopefully Papa Askren's helping him out. When it does get in clinches and on the ground, he uses jiu-jitsu to, Kimuras and stuff like that to create sweeps and scrambles and ends up on top a lot of times. And even like his triangle, he's done a few times. What was it, like 4 fights I watched? Daniel Tamer, Sky, whatever his last name is, in Island fights. A couple guys that he ends up in a kind of a triangle, and he's just raining down elbows on the guy and punches, and then either he finishes them with a submission or punches. He's not knocking guys out. He's not knocking guys' blocks off, that's for sure, but he's finishing fights. Which is pretty exciting. 7 of his 9 wins have come via finish. In the split draw that he had with LaShawn Alcox, that was a win for Hooper, in my opinion. And that was at 155, and he weighed in at like 153 or something like that. So this is at 145, and that's where he belongs. It's interesting. Like I was saying to my girlfriend yesterday, we're the same height. And take about 40 pounds off of me, and I'm not a thick guy. I mean, those arms I'm not a thick guy. Take about 40 pounds off me. Whew. He's an octopus down there. It's interesting to watch. So yeah, he can eat a punch and stay calm under pressure. But I'd like to see him. I mean, he is finishing, but in the Daniel Tamer and LaShawn Alcox fight, you got to finish. When you're getting these deep, it's almost like he's in practice, and it's like it's sunk, and it's sunk. So you kind of might let it go or something. It's like, oh, he tapped, he's going to tap type of thing. But you gotta put him to sleep if you have to. Put him out, put him to sleep. This is fighting. Like, you can't just think that he tapped or, be leery of putting a guy to sleep. Put him out, man. Like, you got to do it. In those 2 fights, he should have put both those guys to sleep, in my opinion. But either way. So I'd like to see him like more of like a killer instinct, you know what I mean? Even though he is finishing fights, I'll take it there. So clearly this kid just wants to be a fighter and wanted to get to the UFC as quick as possible. And, he did that at 20 years old. I think he might have made his debut at 19. No, he was 20. But either way, if you look at his SureDog, he's fought for different organizations like all the way up. He's never had a belt. You know, it's relatively rare to never have a regional belt. You know, once you get to the UFC, in his last 6 fights, he fought in Dominate FC, the Combat Games, Dana White Contender Series, CFFC, Island Fights, Titan FC, and then the UFC. So he's just bouncing around taking fights and super active. Like, since he was an amateur, started fighting as an amateur, obviously in 2017 when he was 17, I guess, 17 years old. He had 6 fights in the calendar year 2017. That's crazy. 6 fights in 2017, 5 fights in 2018, and then 3 in 2019, and this is his first in 2020. So very active, very, very active. And he, like I said, his trajectory was to get to the UFC and be a professional fighter, which is cool. It's good to see. And I'm glad he's here, and he's super exciting. The UFC is certainly hoping that he wins this fight. Absolutely. He is he's someone that they can kind of build around, and you know, he can create a following for himself. Young kid, kind of gangly, you know, like there's no way you would see this kid on the street and be like, you're dangerous. You know, he looks like he's 15, and like I said, same size, same height as me, but about 40 pounds lighter. It's not a dangerous looking person, but when you see him in the octagon, you know, that'll change your mind quick. So kid can't even drink legally in the States. It's awesome. Anyway, so how do I see this fight going down? Let's get to it. This kid's a star in the making. I just want to accentuate that. And there's a lot of them on this card. You're going to hear me say that a bunch because I've already said it a couple times, and I still have a few more to say it about. But I like Chase Hooper. I like what he's doing, and he needs this win. This is a very, very, very winnable fight. Styles make matchups, and their styles equal. Chase Hooper takes him down and wins the fight. That's what the styles say. And that's the easiest route to victory for him, for sure. The route to victory for Cacares is he just picks him apart on the feet. Is Hooper going to do that? God, no. He's got terrible stand-up. So sloppy. It's not good. But he's hopefully working on that in his wrestling, and I'm sure he's still, again, 20. He's got so much time to learn, and he will be a contender and has a serious future in this division and in the UFC. Both southpaws, so that's interesting. Who do I have winning this fight? Chase Hooper, man. It's easy for me to say that. It's easy for me to say Chase Hooper for sure. Like I said, his route to victory is super clear and relatively easy. Cacares is a bit of a fish out of water on the floor. He's not going to come anywhere close to even contending with Chase Hooper on the ground. I'm sorry. It's just what it is. So is Cacares going to be able to keep him up and pick him apart on the feet? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So I'm definitely picking Chase Hooper. That's who I'm picking to win the fight. And then I'm betting on Chase Hooper as well. 1.57. I honestly thought he might have been hyped up to have a worse number than that. But because the odds makers absolutely go off of hype a lot. Bettors go off of the hype, which, you know, changes the line. So there you go. But 1.57 for Chase Hooper, I'll definitely take that. I might not take the finish just because that's not extreme enough for me. Yeah, that's not a huge difference. So I probably just avoid it just in case. If you really like Alex Cacares and you think he can just pick him apart, take him in a decision. The money line's not bad money either, but I almost guarantee it's a decision. So 4.5 to 1 on your money. If you like Alex Cacares, go ahead. I won't be betting that. I'd probably just take Chase Hooper in a few runners, and I think I already put him into a parlay, 1.57. To go the distance, no, yes. I'd probably just avoid that one and take the money line. Over under rounds, I mean, I probably avoid that too, unless you know, there could be a super quick first round finish, and then the under money's looking pretty good. Under 1.5 for 2.37, that's pretty good money. But I don't know. I don't usually like to take those types of risks. If I'm being honest, I usually look at what the over money is and go from there. But with this fight, I probably avoid those two lines and just go with the money line. You know, there's not a ton of juice on Chase Hooper, so I probably don't bet it a ton. But that's who I'm picking, and that's who I'll be betting on is Chase Hooper. Next up, we got a bantamweight bout between Eddie Wineland and the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley. This should be good. I'm going to start it with Eddie Wineland, who is a former title challenger in the UFC and a former champ with the WEC at bantamweight. He's been around forever. 35 years old. You can see his record there. He's seen it all. He's been in with the best. Yeah, he's just a grizzled vet, solid old vet. He switches his stances pretty well, quite a bit. Switches his stances a lot. He's got a ton of feints. That's, a ton of feints. He holds his hands low, his head high, but he's got good head movement, and he's pretty much just a boxer for the most part. He doesn't offer a ton in the grappling and jiu-jitsu game. So yeah, we'll take a look at his last couple fights here. His last time out, he got a win against Grigory Popov, who probably won't have much of a career in the UFC. Took a loss to Alejandro Perez and a loss to John Dodson before that. And then back in 2016, KO'd Mazugaki, which is a great win, and then TKO'd Frankie Saenz as well, which are good wins, but again, they're 4 years ago. So I can't really get super behind Eddie Wineland. His fight against Popov was a year ago. So yeah, that's Eddie Wineland. Let's go to Sean O'Malley, who's he's super unpredictable, this guy. It's hard to really say what his power, stance is and what his power side is. He switches stances constantly, literally constantly, and he's super dangerous from both sides. Very unpredictable, jumping knees, spinning kicks, good 1-2, super active everywhere with everything, leg kicks, left, right leg, right, left punches, everything, just super hyperactive. He can take a punch. He took a couple good shots from Terrion Ware, that's for sure. And in his Tuesday Night Contender Series, he took some decent shots in those fights. And he's improving in his jiu-jitsu. He's a purple belt, I think, right now, and he's putting in a lot of work to improve his jiu-jitsu. So that's encouraging. He against Andre Sukumtat, he was more than winning that fight. He was absolutely winning that fight, and then he broke his foot. It's not really a broken foot. It was a Lisfranc fracture, which is almost worse than breaking your foot. And he was out 2 years after that one. It's tough. A lot of football players get it, and it's really, really, really tough to come back from, within a reasonable time period. Like if you suffer a Lisfranc fracture at any point in the NFL season, you're pretty much out the rest of the season. And O'Malley was out 2 years with it, then came back and had a great showing against Jose Quinones, who's a really good fighter. He's an underrated fighter. Teco, he's a good fighter, man. And that's it's been good. I've been very happy with how they've brought along Sean O'Malley. I saw someone on Twitter who was like saying he deserves a top 5 or something like that, or top 10 or whatever it was. And no, man, build him up. Let him get some wins, and he is taking a step up in competition every time. Tuesday Night Contender is similar. Then Terrion Ware, that's a pretty good fighter in your debut, and then Andre Sukumtat, that's a step up from Ware in my opinion, and then Quinones is a step up, and now Wineland is a step up. It'll be hard to deny him a top 15 opponent. Maybe 15th ranked, something like that. He might even move in. He might even move into into the top 15 at 15 or something like that with a quick win against Wineland. But don't throw him to the wolves, man. Don't. He might be able to hang and bang, and he probably would, and would probably get a lot of wins. But here's what I want to say about Sean O'Malley. You make no mistake about it. The UFC absolutely wants him so badly to win this fight. It would be an absolute disaster if Eddie Wineland catches Sean O'Malley and puts him away somehow. That would be an absolute disaster for the UFC, for Sean O'Malley, for fans, to be honest. It would be an absolute disaster, because make no mistake about it, Sean O'Malley is a superstar in the making. Superstar. I'm not going to sit here and say he's the next Conor McGregor. First of all, I don't like to say anyone is the next anyone. And maybe no one will get to that level that Conor McGregor got to. He is the biggest star in this sport ever. Don't even try to question it. It is what it is. Like him or hate him, I don't really care. Conor McGregor is the biggest star in the UFC, period. And Sean O'Malley is potentially going to put himself into that sort of language. He's got, just looking at, look at his following. Number one, he's an awesome fighter, super exciting, and he beats everybody up and he's finishing them. Except for Sukumtop, but he broke his foot. And then Terrion Ware was just super, super tough. But 8 of his 11 wins are by stoppage. And I see how this goes too. I can see this being an early stoppage. But either way, like I said, and then his following, look at his following. So I looked at it the other day when I was doing my breakdown and everything. On Instagram, he's got like 940 something thousand followers, followers. On Twitter, 90,000 followers. On his YouTube channel, 90,000 subscribers. On his Twitch channel, about 27,000 subscribers. Like, this guy has a big audience, a very big audience. Considering his age and where he's at in his career, he's just getting started and he's already got that sort of a following. Man, this guy is a superstar in the making. Trust me when I say that. Superstar. This guy is I can't say it enough. You heard me. There it is. So who wins this fight? Sean O'Malley wins this fight 100%. There's a less than 1% that Eddie Wineland wins this fight. I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to make it seem like Eddie Wineland's a can over here, but he's older. He's been off a bunch. Sean O'Malley is legit, and that's just what's going to happen. I've actually round bet this already. I bet this first round stoppage, and I don't usually do that. I take a lot of risk. I do. I take a lot of risk in my parlays. But I see that being relatively safe. The round betting money on it for the first round was 3.1. 3.1 for O'Malley to knock out Eddie Wineland. You betcha, man. You betcha. I like that. And I think that there's a seriously strong possibility that happens. This kid was put into, after his Tuesday Night Contender Series, he was on the main card of the finale, the Ultimate Fighter finale, and then on the main card in a UFC event, the main card instantly, and then on the main card of Adesanya Romero, and then now on the main card. Like, this kid is a superstar in the making, make no mistake about it. So that's what's happening. Sean O'Malley is going to win this fight. He's going to probably knock him out. He's going to finish him, and hopefully in the first round, because I already bet it. 1.2 on your money. Yeah, sure, throw it in anything. It's pretty extremely safe. If you want to take the KO, I wouldn't take the KO. 1.3, like 1.61. I'm not going to take that because I'm just going to round bet it. Like, that's not enough for me. I'm just going to round bet it personally. I would rather take under 1.5 for 2-1 in my money than take the 1.61. I'm not taking that. So I don't know where. I can't find literally any win for Eddie Wineland. I can't find any win for him. So bet Sean O'Malley, take it to the bank. Take it, sprinkle it everywhere and anywhere. Check my bet slips. Keep your eyes peeled. Don't blink when the sugar show's on. I'll tell you that. So let's move on to the next. All right, after we get a quick Sugar Show Sean O'Malley knockout, most likely, we're going to be able to maybe catch our breath a little bit with Neil Magny versus Rocco Martin at 170. Rocco Martin moved up quite a while ago from 155. Let's start with Rocco Martin, I guess. He's a bit of a, like I kind of just alluded to, he's a bit of a smaller welterweight. He's a big advocate for the 165 division. I don't think that probably happens. I don't think that they make a 165 division. I think it would be kind of cool if they did, but either way, that's not what this is about. So he makes really solid adjustments in fight. He picks up on tendencies and then exploits them. So I really like that. He's a good counter right hand that's what he kind of adjusts with. So I really like that. Good heavy top wrestling considering his size. He he only had one head kick against a lefty, southpaw Ryan LaFleur. One head kick knocked him out clean. Not particularly clean, but he did finish with punches, but he was out. That was a great kick. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he's not afraid of a firefight. He's not afraid to slug it out on the feet, that's for sure. He's got a really good 1-2 with some good uppercuts as well. So if guys are kind of shooting on him, like I said, he's a BJJ black belt, but he likes to stand a lot. So if guys are shooting on him, he'll hit that uppercut. And he has a good 1-2, really good 1-2. He's really good calf kicker against orthodox fighters. He's an orthodox fighter, so against other orthodox fighters, he can hit that calf kick. Against a southpaw, he'd obviously have trouble with that. He's got really slick jiu-jitsu, like I said, and creates scrambles that way. Decent jab. And he had to move up. So let's look at his previous fights. He was, like I said, he was 155, but even at 155, he lost to Rashid Magomedov. Nothing wrong with that. Lost to Beneil Dariush. I've spoken a few times about how disrespected Beneil Dariush is. Leonardo Santos, who, just take a look at his record and watch his, however many fights you want of Leonardo Santos. That is not a bad loss at all. And then Olivier Aubin Mercier, he probably should have got that win, but that was the point where he just had to move up. Supposedly in that weight cut, he was in the bathtub for 24 of the final 32 hours before weighing in. That's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. So after that fight, he took the loss, split decision too, and he just got out-grappled, out-wrestled. That's what Aubin Mercier can do, and that's what he did against Rocco Martin. So that's the only bad loss type of thing for me, but at the same time I don't really see it that way considering everything. Then he moves up to 170. Kita Nakamura, who's got 35 wins. Ryan LaFleur, who's got a win over Ponzinibbio, and I thought he had a win over someone fantastic that was just like, oh wow, he beat him. Either way, a win over Ponzinibbio, who only has 3 losses, so that's a big one. And then a win over Jake Matthews, Sergio Moraes, and then he gets his real kind of shot. He gets a real shot against Damian Maia, and one judge had it as a tie. He did lose the fight. Damian Maia won that fight for sure, but one judge had it as a tie. They gave him a 10-8 in the third, which I don't particularly agree with. I think it was 29-28, Damian Maia. That's more or less what it was. That was his real shot, to move up the rankings and to kind of stamp himself in there. But he came up short. It is what it is. It's Damian Maia. There's nothing really wrong with that. You can't really hang your head there. And then he comes back and gets a win against Emev in November. So that's kind of Rocco Martin. Let's move over to Neil Magny. Neil Magny is there's a lot of people that really like Neil Magny. He's a bit of a staple in the 170 division. He was in the rankings for a long time. I'm actually not a massive fan of Neil Magny. I'm just not. 12 of his 22 wins have come via decision. He's not really a power puncher. He's really, really not a power puncher. And then he doesn't throw enough volume for me. When I was doing a lot of tape, watching a lot of tape on this and prepping for it, a lot of, Joe Rogan was saying a ton that he's a volume puncher and he's got great cardio. He does have great cardio, don't get me wrong, but he's not really a volume puncher. He's not out there just putting stuff together. He really wasn't to me. He's a decent grappler, but to me, not extremely dangerous there. And I think Rocco Martin might have the advantage in the grappling and jiu-jitsu. He really looks to clinch and kind of smother up against the cage, get underhooks, and then lift and slam. He's taller than most guys at this division, at this weight class, sorry. So he looks to get those underhooks, lift them, slam them, and then kind of grind them out down there. Yeah, and then he's got a decent jab, and it has really improved over watching some fights. His jab has improved, but I'd like to see him stick it out more and more. When you're getting out jabbed by, guys like Ponzinibbio, like where you have a massive reach advantage, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, he's got a huge advantage in reach over Rocco Martin. Is he going to use it? I don't really think so. I haven't really seen it. Last time out, he got the win against Jing Liang, who I expected to get that win. I thought he was going to get that win. He was on had some momentum and everything, and that was a good win for Neil Magny. And then before that, he was main event against Ponzinibbio in Argentina, and he got KO'd in that one. Knocks out Craig White, yippee, and then beats my boy Carlos Condit in a decision, which was tragic because he had taken some time off after that one, and he's hung it up since then, I believe. But Carlos Condit's one of my favorite fighters of all time. But either way, so yeah, here's how this fight goes for me. Against Ponzinibbio, he could barely walk. Against Lorenz Larkin, he could barely walk after taking some heavy leg kicks. He could barely stand. And then Rocco Martin against Jake Matthews and Emev, Jake Matthews, Moraes, these guys couldn't walk. These guys couldn't walk with calf kicks. No one likes to get the calf kicked, but Neil Magny definitely doesn't like to get calf kicked. And here's the thing. If you've lost a couple times that way, it kind of gets into your head a little bit. So if Rocco Martin hits a couple calf kicks on him, he could start to go back to that place, that place that he's been in, where it wasn't going well, and his leg just shut down on him. And I could see that definitely happening. Rocco Martin throws a lot of calf kicks, and he throws a very good, quick calf kick. And that's kind of what I see happening here. I see Rocco Martin picking him apart with that calf and just, then being able to work his boxing. If Neil Magny can't walk, it's tough to win fights if you can't use your front leg. If you can't use your left leg, it's tough to win fights. So that's what I see happening. I'm picking Rocco Martin to win this fight. He hasn't lost to anybody that isn't any good. That's for sure. And he's only lost once at welterweight, and that was to a perennial title contender, even at 185. So he's a smaller 70 fighting a bigger 70 who's more skilled, like in a lot of ways, especially on the ground. There's nothing wrong with that loss whatsoever to Damian Maia. So I see him kicking that leg and causing some serious damage and potentially getting in his head a little bit about it, and then just being able to pick him apart. Am I going to take him to get a finish? Probably not. Like, realistically, I'm probably not going to take that 3.75 or 4.5 for a finish. I'm probably just going to take the money line here. It just makes me a little too nervous to take anything other than the money line. Like, I'm already taking the underdog and I'm just straight picking them. So I'm going to just take Rocco Martin in the money line, 2.25, get 2.25 on my money. If you really like Neil Magny, you could take the decision, but 2.2, like, realistically, that's what the odds makers and the line makers are saying here, is that Neil Magny is going to win in the decision. I just don't see it. I could definitely see Rocco Martin winning in decision, 3.75. I like that. Do I want to take it? I don't know. Check my bet slips. Again, it depends on where I get and if I get behind or something like that. You guys know me. So see where I'm at. But I like the money line right now, 2.25 on my money. Fight to go the distance, I'm not touching that. And then over under rounds, don't like those numbers either. Like the over 1.5, 1.22. I'm not touching those. I'm not touching either of those. And I just like the money line a lot and potentially a decision. So check my bet slips. I'm picking Rocco Martin, and that's who I'm betting on as well. So let's move on to the next fight. Extremely excited about this fight. Extremely. You could make a case that this is for the vacant bantamweight title. You could make that case. Obviously, Peter Yan and Jose Aldo are fighting for that title, and then whoever wins this fight gets that shot, guaranteed, and it's going to be a great fight. Let's we got Aljamain Sterling, the Funkmaster, versus Cory Sandhagen. Let's take a look at Aljamain Sterling first and foremost. He's really physically strong, really strong guy. He's very unorthodox in his striking and in his grappling and stuff like that. He's got good footwork, switches his stances a bunch, has lots of kicks, throws lots of body kicks and leg kicks, head kicks, he just kicks in general, throws a lot. He's active off his back. He's got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Matt Serra. Strong, again, in grappling and in exchanges. With heavy ground and pound. So he's able to get guys down and be heavy on top of them, strong on top of them. They're not really going anywhere. It's tough for them to get anywhere anyways. He's an intelligent grappler as well, and never really stays still. Like I said, he's active and strong, heavy ground and pound. He usually covets position over finish, hyperactive striker, and just kind of looks to touch him up, touch, that kind of a guy. Good head movement, and that makes him pretty tough to hit. So that's kind of Aljamain Sterling. Look at his last 4 fights. He's had a great career already in the UFC. Got all the way up to being a super contender and fought Brian Caraway, lost a split decision to Brian Caraway, nothing wrong with that. Then fought Rafael Assuncao. This is 3 years ago when Assuncao was maybe a little bit better and younger and everything like that. Took the loss there. Both split decision losses, nothing wrong with that. And then beats Augusto Mendez. Definitely had to win that one. Easy win relatively. Renan Barão, that was a good win at that time. It was still an impressive win at that time. And then lost to Marlon Moraes. There's nothing wrong with the Marlon Moraes loss. He kind of got caught with a quick, it was a kick, but he got hit with the knee and knocked him out. Then he comes back, Brett Johns, Cody Stamann, Jimmy Rivera, Pedro Munoz. He knee-barred Cody Stamann, which was great, and then unanimous decision wins against Rivera, Munoz, and Brett Johns. So, trains with a great team, Serra Longo, which I really like. They got the quality jiu-jitsu grappler and the boxer, stand-up striker kind of guy. And they're one of the most entertaining guys to kind of listen to the corner. Obviously, they cuss a lot, so there you go. But they're a great gym, and they're great trainers. And Aljo's kind of their like prize pupil right now. And he's the closest, I think, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but he's the closest I think they have to a UFC title in their stable right now. Moving on over to Cory Sandhagen. Former 145 pounder, so he's obviously big. He's 5'11". Him and John O'Malley, real close. They're both 5'11", 130, huge, long, rangy striker type guys. They can do a lot of things. Honestly, I'll say right now, I can't wait for Sandhagen O'Malley. That's going to happen at some point, I think, and it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a really good one. It might not be for about a year, and it'll probably be for the bantamweight title, but either way, that'll be a good one. So Cory Sandhagen trains with Neil Magny and a lot of other solid fighters at Elevation in Colorado, Elevation Fight Team. Super unorthodox guy. Switches his stances a ton. Again, it's hard to really tell what his power side is. He switches so much and throws everything with on both sides, kicks, legs, jabs. It's hard to find a guy. It's hard to find too many guys that can throw a good jab with either hand. It's really tough to see, or you just don't see it very much. And it's really good to see. It's amazing to see. It's just no one's really that good where they can do both from both sides. They have a good jab and defense from both stances. It's tough to see, and it's really good. It's really awesome. He works the body just extremely well. He has this in the orthodox stance. He has this left jab and then body hook. Like that's his combo with the same hand. Jab, come up high, block, and then liver shot with the same hand. It's beautiful. And I'm going to put a link in the description to the Filthy Casuals Guide to Cory Sandhagen done by Jack Slack. Check it out. It is fantastic. You will get a whole new appreciation of who Cory Sandhagen is. Check it out. So Lots of leg kicks. He's super busy everywhere, like I said. Very, very similar. These guys are actually very similar, except for the height and reach and everything like that. Maybe not reach. I'll get into that. But they're very similar in that regard. They both stay very active. Great in scrambles. Awesome head movements. Creates a ton of crazy angles in the stand-up because he switches stances so much. And then it's literally like this guy... Like he's literally made of rubber, I think. Like it's crazy against Yuri Alcantara. How in this or any other world did he not tap out or have his arm broken in that fight? If you haven't seen that fight, go watch Cory Sandhagen, Yuri Alcantara, and explain to me how his arm didn't break. Please. He's literally made of rubber, this guy. And then he finished him in that round. No, he got him in the second. Okay. But it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, pause this video, go watch it, and then return. And then, or maybe go watch the video by Jack Slack too, and then come back and return to this. So I really like Cory Sandhagen an absolute ton. I liked him since I saw him every fight. I've seen every fight he's had in the UFC. I've seen most people's every fight. But either way, Austin Arnett, since the Austin Arnett fight, I was just blown away with this kid. And I have been a massive fan ever since. The Yuri Alcantara fight was ridiculous. Mario Batista. And this is the other thing. It's not like he's losing or he's out here beating cans, man. Austin Arnett was a tough fight at the time, and he's a tough fighter. He was in there. That was a tough fight, and that was in his debut. Then he takes on Yuri Alcantara. That's a tough fight, man. That's hard for this young of a kid in his career. That's a tough one. And then Mario Batista, like, you might not know who he is, but he's 8-1 in in his career. And that was his first and only loss to Cory Sandhagen. Then he goes out and beats Jinsu Sun, who had an absolute war with Petr Yan, who's fighting for the title right now. And that was a phenomenal fight. It was underrated, like low-key fight of the year. Go check out Jinsu Sun versus Petr Yan if you haven't seen it. And then beats Miles Johns, who I think that was his only career loss. Yeah, that was his only career loss. So it's not like, he's beating up guys that are no good, or, he's getting brought along slowly or anything like that. Like and then John Lineker, sure, the height difference was extreme. John Lineker's 5'3" and 5'11" for Cory Sandhagen, but it was a split decision win for Sandhagen against John Lineker, who hits, like I've said before, hits like a friggin' truck. And then Rafael Assuncao. That's a tough fight, man. Like, he's not getting any free passes here. So, not that Aljamain Sterling is either, don't get me wrong, but yeah, like, I'm not saying he's getting thrown to the wolves, but he definitely hasn't had any free passes in the UFC. Both have a phenomenal gas tank. Not worried about that at all. They're both very similar. How I see this fight going is I just see Cory Sandhagen being too good. I'm a huge believer in Cory Sandhagen. I think he's the champ. I think he will be the champ. I think he gets by Aljamain Sterling, which hurts me to say because I really, really like Aljamain Sterling. I really do. He's got a really big presence on Twitter, really active. I love that. I like that in fighters, and I like watching him fight. He's a great fighter. And it's tough for me to say that Aljamain Sterling is going to lose, but I really like Cory Sandhagen. He might be one of my favorite fighters in the UFC right now. He's probably a top 3 favorite fighter of mine in the UFC right now. I really think he's going to be the champ. So I think he gets by Aljamain Sterling. I'm definitely picking and betting on him to beat Aljamain Sterling, and I think there's a very good possibility he stops him with everything that he throws, and he's super long. It says there's no reach advantage. It says there's a reach advantage for Aljamain Sterling. I do not believe in that. I mean, he's just so much longer, 4 inches taller, and he throws long. They both actually fight really long. They keep everyone on the end of their punches. They fight long, which I really like. But he's just going to be a little bit longer. It's just a fact. There's no way to kind of deny that. He's going to be a little bit longer, quicker to the punch, work that jab, and he throws some crazy stuff. Like, even if Aljamain Sterling grapples with him and grabs him, he uses his jiu-jitsu and is able to create scrambles, even like Granby rolls and stuff like that, and Kimuras where he's turning guys over and ends up on top, whatever. Like I think Cory Sandhagen can get the stoppage. But either way, that's who I'm picking. I'm picking Cory Sandhagen, and as you can tell, I'm a huge fan. And I'm betting on him. The 1.9, absolutely. This got bet down to him being a favorite, 2-1. It came back down. Obviously, smart money went there. And I'm taking Sandhagen 1.9 for sure. I've already sprinkled him to finish the 4.33. You could definitely say a decision, 3.1 on your money for a decision. You could definitely make that case for sure. If you like Aljamain Sterling, I would say a decision's the way to go, considering what I saw from Alcantara, how he's just not going to tap out and his bones don't break somehow. Aljamain Sterling, of his 18 wins, he's 50-50 stoppage and decision. So if you like Aljamain Sterling a lot, I would take a decision win there. You could just take the money line 1.9 as well. Like, yeah, it's a pick 'em fight. I see Cory Sandhagen as being a favorite here for sure, which makes me bet on him. And I like him. I'm betting on Cory Sandhagen. The over-under rounds, I mean, under 2.5, 2.62. I mean, I definitely don't mind that, because I do think that Sandhagen can get the stoppage here. So I don't mind that, but I probably don't bet it because I'm getting better money elsewhere. Fight to go the distance. Again, I'm getting better money somewhere else. So I probably just take Cory Sandhagen 1.9 on the money line as well as a stoppage. I might even sprinkle decision as well. I think I might take him a bunch and kind of have a couple parlays that work together on this. Yeah, I probably do that a bunch. So check my bet slips. That's who I'm picking. Agree with me or not, I'm taking Cory Sandhagen. I think he's the next champ. So let's move on to the co-main event. We got the co-main event of the evening in the bantamweight division. Cody No Love Garbrandt versus Rafael Assuncao. I'm going to start with Assuncao. Right off the top, it's an absolute travesty. This guy's never had a title shot. Never got a title shot in the UFC. It's an absolute travesty. He's been a staple in the division. Rattled off like 8 straight wins before losing to Dillashaw, then 4 more, lost to Moraes. Like, in his last couple fights against Sandhagen, Assuncao's been in the top 5 for like 10 years probably. He fights Cory Sandhagen, who's ranked 9th, Rob Font, who's ranked 11th, Matt Lopez, who's ranked 13th, Marlon Moraes, who was not even ranked. It was Marlon Moraes' debut, and there was a lot of hype behind him. It was like Justin Gaethje, so there's nothing really wrong with that. But again, he probably wouldn't have been ranked like, in the top 10 yet, in the top 5 yet, right? So he's kind of had and then Aljamain Sterling before Moraes, he wasn't super high in the rankings. He probably was in there, but you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of just gotten shafted a little bit by the UFC. It's kind of sucks that he'll never get there. Like, he's not going to get back to being in the title contention. The 135, the bantamweight division, is so stacked right now. Like, peace, Henry Cejudo. I am fine with you leaving. There are so many good fights and so many killers in this division. I'm not a big fan of Henry Cejudo. If you've seen a few of my episodes, I'm not a fan of what he did and a fan of his at all. But I think that I'm fine with it, man. The division is in a fantastic place right now. There's so many good fighters at 135. Either way, let's move on. Let's get into this. So Rafael Assuncao, he's really hard to hit flush, man. He's really hard to just like one punch knockout. Doesn't happen a ton. It happened. Eric Koch way back in the day, way back in the day, 10 years ago almost. Beyond that, it hasn't happened. And he's fought the likes of TJ Dillashaw twice, Pedro Munoz, Aljamain Sterling, Marlon Moraes twice, Rob Font, Cory Sandhagen, all those guys, and no one's knocking him out. He's hard to hit flush. This is kind of where his problem gets to. He kind of looks in the mirror a little bit on the feet. He's most certainly a counterpuncher, not very volume heavy on the feet, and he kind of looks in the mirror a little bit, so he can get caught in that. Obviously, like I said, looks to counterpunch. Very good jiu-jitsu, black belt, but again, not a huge wrestler, or not very good wrestling against Cory Sandhagen anyways, but he did show some solid wrestling against, I can't remember who, but I watched a ton of his fights, and I can't remember who he was. So he has good, heavy top game and good wrestling, but it wasn't against Cory Sandhagen. He might look to do that in this fight. He can be taken advantage of by lateral punchers, in my opinion. So Cory Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw, if you're moving laterally and punching kind of thing, like he can be taken advantage of there, because like I said, he's kind of a counter puncher. So if you're move punching, that's the way to go. And Cody can do that. If he switches stances and goes southpaw, he's an orthodox fighter. If he switches stances to southpaw, look for kicks. He's going to look to kick head, body, legs, something. He's looking to throw a quick kick if he switches to southpaw. I kind of noticed a few tendencies there. So look for that if he switches to southpaw. A couple times, like he looks to take down off the jab. So, you know, obviously, if you're opening yourself up, your whole body, you know, with your jab, he's looking to drop, change levels, and shoot on you, which is what a lot of wrestlers do, and it's a very good plan. I mean, so that's why his wrestling isn't as bad. It just didn't look very good against Cory Sandhagen, but you know, that's fair. On the feet, those are a lot of leg kicks and just a 1-2. He's 1-2 counter puncher, 1-2 counter punch, and leg kicks. Pretty basic, man. It's pretty basic, and it's relatively easy to mirror and predict. So that's kind of the breakdown of Assuncao and what he kind of looks like, in my opinion. Again, so Cody Garbrandt needs to slip his jab. He needs to slip the jab, and this is where Cory Sandhagen was really lucky with this quick left, not lucky, but his quick left hook, just quick inside left hook. And then, oh no, sorry, that was Moraes. Sorry, Moraes and Coke who knocked him out. Quick left hook, and just time it, right? Time his I think it was off his jab. Something like that. I can't remember, but a quick left hook. And then, so what Cody needs to do is kind of slip that jab. Just slip the jab one side or the other, and then throw a big right hand. A big left hand. Big left hand. I got to remember what I was talking about here to myself. Slip the jab, overhand left, quick, right? Or the other way, and then with a right hand, right? He's got a fantastic boxing, Cody Garbrandt, obviously. I think he was like 31-1 or something as an amateur boxer. Fantastic boxing. Very good takedown defense. And he's kind of one of those guys that was like in the first wave of straight MMA, you know, fighters. He doesn't have, besides boxing, obviously boxing is kind of his base, but he got into MMA. He didn't get into jiu-jitsu or karate or judo or something like that. I guess you could say boxing, but he's kind of he started training in MMA, you know, alpha male guy. Started training in MMA early and young. He's got really good quick in and out movement, you know. And he's a little heavy on his lead leg though, which kind of worries me. A little heavy on that lead leg, so he can be leg kicked, which worries me for Assuncao and his style and how he fights. He's extremely fast, super fast hands, Cody Garbrandt. Extremely fast hands. And really heavy hands, especially for 135. Really heavy hands. He is most certainly like a knockout artist. 9 of his 11 wins have come by knockout, and they're not usually TKOs. Like, they're clean, flush knockouts, dropping guys, right? He needs to. Here's the thing. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna talk about. Cody Garbrandt. This is what he needs to do. And this is what he needed to do against Dillashaw and both times, and Pedro Munoz. He needs to stay straight, stay punching straight, not movement. He needs to punch straight, right? He always gets into these firefights where he's throwing these huge like haymaker hooks, and it's sloppy. It looks so sloppy, and then he gets clipped and knocked out. Happening against Dillashaw twice, happening against Pedro Munoz. He gets caught in this firefight, and he's chasing the knockout. He's chasing the KO. It'll come. He has a ton of power. It'll come. You'll knock guys out. He has, and he does, and he will. It's in his head right now. It's in his head. He's been knocked out clean 3 times in a row. Like, it's kind of in his head, and he needs to stop chasing that knockout. He was beating Pedro Munoz. He was winning that fight, and then he just got clipped, and he got caught, and then he tries to get it back, take your lumps and move on and continue doing what you were doing, stay crisp, stay tight, stay clean, straight boxing, 1-2 up the middle, None of this looping stuff, unless you got a guy absolutely rocked where he's out. He's out for sure. And even then, like TJ Dillashaw, right? Like, you gotta just stay composed, like he did against Cruz, like he did against Dominic Cruz. That fight wasn't as dominant as people think, the Dominic Cruz fight. It was definitely a great win, a fantastic win, and he definitely won the fight. But it wasn't like he ran away with it and just blew Cruz out of the water. But he did win the fight, and he did land some good stuff because he stayed composed, and he stayed straight, and he stayed disciplined. And really it just went his way the whole fight. That's why the whole fight went his way. If it doesn't go his way, it's hard for him to get it out of his head into rebound. So that's what needs to happen, man. Cody Garbrandt can absolutely pick Rafael Assuncao apart. He can absolutely just pick him and box him and pick him apart and get the win. Absolutely. Will he do that? I don't know, man. If he gets clipped with a counter right hand, which is what Assuncao is going to do, and it's what he does, if he eats up his leg a bit and hits him with a counter right hand off of some sort of crazy flurry, where he thinks he has him rocked or something, he could get, Assuncao could put Cody Garbrandt's lights out. And then it's like, where would Cody Garbrandt go from there, really? Like, it's tough. 4 straight losses, knockout fashion. I do not want to see that. I want to see Cody Garbrandt win this fight. Absolutely. And then I want to see him fight Dominic Cruz again. That's what I want. But either way, so yeah, man, it's just stay disciplined. Just stay disciplined and just box him and stay on your feet. Use your takedown defense. Work off your jab. Work behind your jab. Stay long. Keep him on the end of your punches. Cody Garbrandt can win this fight. Absolutely. It's just a matter of if he stays with it, man. Just sticks to it. Just sticks to it and stays disciplined and doesn't get in a firefight. So, who am I picking? I'm going to pick Cody Garbrandt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to pick Cody Garbrandt. And I'm going to hope that he stays disciplined. This is basically like, I don't want to say like win or go home, but it's like win or where do you go from here? You're out of the rankings. If Cody Garbrandt gets knocked out in this fight, he's out of the rankings. I'm sorry. So what do you do? Where do you go from there? So I hope he wins. And I think I know that he can. It's just a matter of if he stays with it. He can take like one punch. He can take one punch. But then he's got to not get into this, I need to get it back firefight where I'm going to knock your block off because you punch me in the face. Stay disciplined, man. Stay disciplined. You can and will win this fight if you stay disciplined. So I'm picking Cody Garbrandt. I'm not extremely I'm not extremely confident, to be honest with you. I'm not going to bet very much on this fight because I think that Cody Garbrandt can be his own worst enemy. And it's very possible that happens again. So I'm not going to bet a ton, but I am picking Cody Garbrandt. The money line 1.66, sure. I don't think it's tough to hit a Assuncao flush. So it's going to be tough for him to just knock his block off. It's going to be tough to just do that. So you could go 4-1 to money on the decision, but is Cody Garbrandt going to be able to stay patient enough and disciplined enough over 3 rounds? We'll see. To go the distance, yes, no. Obviously, they think that Cody Garbrandt wins and knocks him out. That's what the line makers are saying here. You could go over 1.5 rounds, but that's risky too. So to me, I don't bet a ton on this fight. I really don't. This fight makes me nervous. It makes me really nervous. So I probably don't bet a lot on this. I'm picking Cody Garbrandt. Check my bet slips and see if I sprinkle anything. And if you like something, here's some. I've given you tons to chew on and a lot to think about, and some tips and stuff like that. But this is a sketchy fight for me. It's a really sketchy fight. Cody Garbrandt is his own worst enemy inside the octagon. And if he stays disciplined, he gets the win. And he's a former title holder. He's a former champion, and he could get back to that if he just stays disciplined. He has some of the best boxing in probably the UFC right now. Him and Peter Yan would be a fantastic fight, but I would 100% pick Peter Yan to knock him out because he doesn't stay disciplined enough. So that's it. That's my 2 cents on the co-main event. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on. All right, main event time, peeps. Main event of the evening. Let's go. So we got for the featherweight women's title, Felicia Spencer, the Phenom, versus the Lioness Amanda Nunes. Shouts to Felicia Spencer, Canadian. I think she's from northern Alberta, near Edmonton. So that's awesome. All right, let's start with Amanda Nunes, the GOAT. Amanda Nunes is the GOAT women's fighter, for sure. No question. She's the GOAT. So it's one of the most well-rounded women's fighters, that's for sure. Brown belt in judo, black belt in BJJ. Super accurate with her punches. Very accurate. You saw it in the, what fight was it? Miesha Tate, maybe? And Ronda Rousey, all of her fights, really, all of her knockouts. The girls are falling backwards and they're on the ground and they're kind of like moving around, but she's still hitting flush. Super accurate. It's pretty cool. Yeah, she's just the GOAT, man. I don't want to go too far into Amanda Nunes. Anyone who watches fighting knows everything about Amanda Nunes. She's great. She's fantastic. She's the GOAT. Like, that's enough. That's all I need to really say right there. She's the GOAT women's fighter. So champ, I don't see her losing at 135 for sure. I don't see her losing at 135. But we'll see. So either way, that's Amanda Nunes. I don't want to take up too much of your time about Amanda Nunes because you know who she is. So move over to Felicia Spencer. Well, let's do Amanda Nunes' last few fights. Sorry. Jermaine Durand to me. She took to decision win. Holly Holm knocked out flush with a head kick. Cyborg knocked out flush with a punch. Rocky Pennington, 5th round. That was a bit of a beating. Beat Valentina Shevchenko again at 135. She couldn't really make 125, so I don't think Valentina ever loses at 125. But these fights were at 135, where she beat her twice. Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, yeah, that Ronda Rousey fight was awesome. But either way, so that's Amanda Nunes, GOAT women fighter. On the flip, we've got Felicia Spencer. Last time out, TKO elbows, showed some violence like she wanted to against Zara Santos. And before that, an extremely tough fight against Cyborg. That fight was in Edmonton, which is, I believe, like I said, where Felicia Spencer's from. And then rear naked choke against Megan Anderson in her UFC debut. So a couple decent wins, and then the Cyborg fight was really good. It almost boosted her. That's almost what made her get this title shot. She was right in there, took her to a decision. If as long as she didn't fall flat on her face against Zara, which she did not, then she was going to get a title shot, right? So here we are, because she beat Megan Anderson. That's why. So she's heavy in grappling. And the grappling exchanges up against the cage in the clinch, right up against the cage. She's super heavy on top. She's super heavy on the ground and pound and in the ground game. She's kind of done that throughout her career. And then if you want to run it back, you can find these fights on on Fight Pass. That's where I watched it. The Rachel Wiley fight in her debut as a professional fighter. If you thought Joanna's head looked gross and bad with that hematoma, go watch that Rachel Wiley fight, and you'll see another one that's pretty disgusting. She clearly gave fighting another thought after that one. She didn't fight again. So it was a beating. She looks to close the distance quickly, like I said, and clinch and grapple up against the cage. She's smothering and active on the cage in the clinch. She's not just, pushing. She's not like Devin Clark pushing people up against the cage and just not really doing anything. She's super active there, and looks to land, knees and elbows and stuff like that. She's got she doesn't have very good boxing, to be honest. She does not have very good boxing and or very much power with her hands on the feet, which is she could be cleaning that up, and she could have been working on it since but that fight was only in February against Zara. So it's tough to just work on the fundamentals of having more power. It's just not going to show up. She's got a Taekwondo black belt, which you can really see in her kicks, in the way she throws her kicks, but she might throw too many kicks. They're not very calculated. She throws a lot of kicks kind of to keep her distance and stuff like that. So it's maybe a little bit too many for me. She's got a BJJ black belt with really good wrestling, super flexible, and has some pretty good scrambles. She's strong. She's a strong girl. She fought at 155. That fight against Rachel Wiley was at 155. So she's a big, strong 145 girl. In the Cyborg fight, she was actually kind of looking like she was winning that second round before she pulled guard. And she had her up against the cage and up against the fence in the clinch, and then she pulled guard, and then it just didn't go well from there. But she was looking like she was pushing the pace and winning that second round at the time. It obviously didn't continue to go that way, and she ate some absolute bombs from Cyborg, who hits like a truck. And she didn't get knocked out. She did not get knocked out. She was pretty messy, and she cut up Cyborg. If you watch that fight, she had a big 2-inch gash on her head. Felicia Spencer changed Cyborg's face, so that's something that she can kind of hang her hat on, I guess. She's super tough, super tough. So, how does this fight go? Here's the thing so I'm going to start right off the top and say it's super easy for me to say Felicia Spencer wins. Super easy for me to say that. If she doesn't, it's Amanda Nunes. She's the GOAT. If I pick Felicia Spencer to win and Nunes wins, I can just say, oh, it's Amanda Nunes. She's a huge favorite. Yeah. Oh man, you can't get mad at me about that, whatever kind of thing. But I'm going to build a case for you right now how I think Felicia Spencer has a legitimate shot to win this fight. So she's huge. She's a big 145. She's a little shorter, and the reach is the same, but she's a big girl and big, strong girl. And Nunes on the other side is a little bit on the smaller side. She's a pure 135. She can obviously get to 145. Of course, that goes without saying get to, but she can get there and be healthy and be fine and not be small or anything like that. But Spencer's going to be bigger. She's going to be bigger and a little bit stronger, in my opinion. And here's what she's going to do. You don't want to be fighting Amanda Nunes in space. Like, God, no. Look at what happened to Cyborg, but she's going to fight her in space anyways. Look what happened to Ronda Rousey. Look what happened to Miesha Tate. Look what happened to Holly Holm, but Holm would fight her that way as well. But these girls that are like grapplers, like Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate are grapplers, but they're, they didn't get a chance, really. They didn't even get a chance to try to grapple with her because they just got clipped early, and that's all she wrote. But Nunes hasn't fought a grappler like Spencer since Rousey and Tate, and those fights were 4 years ago, and neither of them got a chance to get their hands on her. Valentina is going to fight her standing up. Then Tate, Rousey. Valentina is going to stand up. Rocky Pennington stood up with her, got taken down by Nunes and beat up a bunch. Cyborg is going to stand with her. Holm is going to stand with her. Durandamy is going to stand with her. You know, you see what I'm getting at here? She hasn't fought a grappler like Spencer pretty much realistically, like, because the other grapplers that she did fight didn't get a chance to, she hasn't fought a grappler like Felicia Spencer since Cat Zingano. What happened in the Cat Zingano fight? If you don't know, go watch it. She got taken down, elbowed, punched, grinded out, beat up, and she got TKO'd in the third. That's the last loss on Amanda Nunes' record, is against Cat Zingano. And that is exactly what Felicia Spencer needs to do. She needs to close the distance, grab a hold of her like she's done to almost all of her other opponents. Even Cyborg, she got her up against the cage a bunch, and she was able to get it to where she needed it to be. Get it up against the cage, corral her, underhooks. She's got a really good high crotch that she always goes to. She's going to look to get a high crotch and dump Amanda Nunes on her back, get on top, heavy ground game, ground and pound, grind it out. That's Felicia Spencer's road to victory. Do I think she can do it? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do think that she can do that. If you even look at the Germaine de Randamie fight, she lost some steam, Amanda Nunes. She lost some steam. Here's the thing, like, we've seen it a couple times recently. We saw it with Hunter Azure. We saw it with OSP. When you're moving up a weight class, it's almost like, and I don't know for sure on this, but this is just my thought process on it. When you're not cutting all that weight, you're in theory in like worse shape. I'm not saying that really, but like, you know what I mean? So in theory, you're not doing as much cardio to keep the weight off type of thing. Like you're not potentially not working as hard. I don't know that for a fact. And I'm not saying that Nunes doesn't work hard. That's for damn sure. I am not saying that. But I've seen it recently, you know, where their gas tank isn't quite there because they're at a higher weight class. Maybe it's just because they're carrying more weight and they don't move the same way. You know, the motions that they do at 135, that she does at 135, is going to be a little more labored at 145. And it makes her more tired, especially in the grappling. You know, in the de Randamie fight, she did gas a little bit. She was still fine, and she dominated that fight, and she won the fight, no problem. But Germaine de Randamie is not anywhere near the grappler that Felicia Spencer is. Not even close. And like I said, she hasn't fought anyone like that since Cat Zingano, who got the win. Another person who did the same thing to her way back in the day in Strikeforce. Yes, it was almost 10 years ago now, but it was Alexis Davis. She did the same thing. Grinded her out, TKO in the second round. You're going to tell me that that's not possible? You can't tell me that's not possible. So, and I think Felicia can do it. I think she can do it. You know, she's a bigger, stronger 145 girl. Nunes is down a bit. You know, she's a 35. It's not crazy. It's not crazy. So for me, like, again, I don't even want to make a pick on this, to be honest with you, because I want to pick Spencer, because that's who I'm betting on. It's going to be a dog or pass for sure. You're not taking 1.16 for Nunes. Why? Why take that risk? Like, honestly, why? So, and even 1.57 for her to knock her out. Cyborg couldn't do it. Yes, Nunes knocked out Cyborg, but that's not really how MMA math works. So why are you taking all this risk? Like, for a decision, sure, if you're going to take the decision and you think it goes that far, but the odds makers are saying that she knocks her out. That's what these odds are saying. You know, you could go over 1.5 rounds for 1.61 and just, you know, kind of hedge it that way, which I will likely do. I do like that number a lot. 1.61 for over 1.5 rounds. But a lot of people think that Nunes is just going to go knock her block off. I just don't see it. I really don't. You know, I really don't see it. So for me, yes, I'm picking Felicia Spencer. That's who I'm betting on for sure. It's a dog or pass situation. I'm not taking any risk on Amanda Nunes potentially getting. It's a lot like I bet on Holly Holm when she fought Ronda Rousey. Did I think she had a shot to win? Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. And it's a dog or pass. I'm not taking that risk on Rousey. I'm just not. Like, it's not going to happen. Even when Nunes fought her, I think Nunes was the dog, not by as much as the Holly Holm fight, but she was the dog, and I bet on Nunes. Of course, I'm not taking that kind of risk. Like, why? Take the dog, throw it in some light parlays, you know. TKO 7-1. I mean, it's been done. It's happened. It's not crazy. Do I think that happens? I don't know. I mean, realistically, check my bet slips. I will absolutely be laying some money on Felicia Spencer in the money line, 5.5. Absolutely. In a small 3-4 runner parlay, you better believe it. 13-1 for a decision. Yeah. She wasn't by any means gassed against Cyborg. She was right in there. If that fight was 5 rounds, she was in a better position than Cyborg to go 5 rounds. I'll say that. It's not crazy, guys. Like, it's not crazy. So, you know, again, it's easy for me to say that. It's easy for me to say that Felicia Spencer wins this fight. It's low risk for me to say that, really. You know, and don't hold it against me if I'm wrong. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? It's just, but that's what I'm betting on, man. Like, that's where you got to go with the money. Like, don't put it in everything. Don't bet your house on it, obviously. But, I mean, it's dog or pass. So, there you go, man. There you go. There's how Felicia Spencer wins this fight. Push her up against the cage, high crotch, get her down, lay on top, pound her out, elbows, win the fight however it comes. And if you're going to tell me I'm crazy for thinking that, you got to watch more tape. That's it. So, yeah, that's my prediction, man. That's my prediction. That's what I'm betting. And check my bet slips and everything like that. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know in the comments what you think. And yeah, have a good one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I sincerely appreciate it. I hope we're all ready for UFC 250 coming this Saturday, June 6th. I really appreciate every single subscriber that I get, every follow. All the kind words have been fantastic. If you can do me a favor and you like what you hear and see, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. Let's get this channel moving. We got some serious momentum. We're well over 100 subscribers. I'm hoping to hit 200 by the end of this weekend. I think that would be really awesome, but I need your help to get there. So if you want to follow my bet slips as well, at Cody Woodman right there on Twitter, I post all my bet slips. Hold me accountable. Love the conversation. Hopefully, like I said, we make some money on this Saturday. Super excited. And as always, if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right.